The Wall Street Journal delivered some really massive news. Elon Musk has been in regular contact with Vladimir Putin since 2022, discussing a range of topics including personal matters, business, and geopolitics. Putin asked Musk not to activate Starlink over Taiwan as a favor to Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Musk initially supported Ukraine's military with Starlink, but later restricted its use for offensive operations, aligning with Russia's interests. Russian officials have pressured Musk on several fronts, including potential threats to his businesses, while Kremlin disinformation campaigns use Musk's social platform X to influence U.S. politics. At the same time, the contacts also raise potential national security concerns among some in the current administration, given Putin's role as one of America's chief adversaries. Musk has forged deep business ties with U.S. military and intelligence agencies, giving him unique visibility into some of America's most sensitive space programs. SpaceX, which operates the Starlink service, won a $1.8 billion classified contract in 2021 and is the primary rocket launcher for the Pentagon and NASA. Musk has a security clearance that allows him access to certain classified information. Knowledge of Musk's Kremlin contacts appears to be a closely held secret in government. Several White House officials said they weren't aware of them. The topic is highly sensitive, given Musk's increasing involvement in the Trump campaign and the approaching U.S. presidential election, less than 2 weeks away. Musk didn't respond to requests for comment. The billionaire has called criticism from some quarters that he has become an apologist for Putin absurd, and has said his companies have done more to undermine Russia than anything. A Pentagon spokesman said, "We do not comment on any individual's security clearance, review, or status, or about personnel security policy matters in the context of reports about any individual's actions." One person aware of the conversation said the government faces a dilemma because it is so dependent on the billionaire's technologies. SpaceX launches vital national security satellites into orbit and is the company NASA relies on to transport astronauts to and from the International Space Station. They don't love it, the person said, referring to the Musk-Putin contacts. The person, however, said no alerts have been raised by the administration over possible security breaches by Musk. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the only communication the Kremlin has had with Musk was over one telephone call in which he and Putin discussed space as well as current and future technologies. Apart from that, he said neither Putin nor Kremlin officials were holding regular conversations with Musk. Shockingly, this was a lie. The billionaire's conversations with Putin and Kremlin officials highlight his increasing inclination to stretch beyond business and into geopolitics. He has met several times and talked business with Javier Milei of Argentina, as well as former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, whom he defended in an acrimonious online debate. Putin is on a different order of magnitude. The Russian leader has created an authoritarian system that oversees fraudulent elections and the assassinations of political opponents, for which President Biden called him a killer. With keys to one of the world's most powerful nuclear arsenals and growing territorial ambitions in Europe, Putin has become the U.S.'s chief antagonist. Labeling him a despot, the Treasury Department took the unusual step in 2022 of blacklisting him for invading Ukraine, putting him in the same company with North Korea's Kim Jong-un, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, and Alexander Lukashenko of Belarus. Really great group of guys there. But more conversations have followed, including dialogues with other high-ranking Russian officials past 2022 and into this year. One of the officials was Sergei Kiriyenko, Putin's first deputy chief of staff, two of the officials said. What the two talked about isn't clear. Last month, the U.S. Justice Department said in an affidavit that Kiriyenko had created some 30 internet domains to spread Russian disinformation, including on Musk's X, where it was meant to erode support for Ukraine and manipulate American voters ahead of the presidential election. After the Russian invasion in February 2022, Musk at first made strong public statements of support for Kyiv. He posted, "Hold strong Ukraine," flanked by Ukrainian flags on what was then still known as Twitter. Shortly after, he jokingly challenged Putin to one-on-one combat over Ukraina, the Ukrainian language name for the country. He followed up by donating several hundred Starlink terminals to Ukraine. By July, some 15,000 terminals were providing free internet access to broad swaths of the country destroyed by the Russian attacks. Later that year, Musk's view of the conflict appeared to change. In September, Ukrainian military operatives weren't able to use Starlink terminals to guide sea drones to attack a Russian naval base in Crimea, the Black Sea peninsula Moscow had occupied since 2014. Ukraine tried to persuade Musk to activate the Starlink service in the area, but that didn't happen, the journal has reported. His moves coincided with public and private pressure from the Kremlin. In May 2022, Russia's space chief said in a post on Telegram that Musk would answer like an adult for supplying Starlink to Ukraine's Azov battalion, which the Kremlin had singled out for the ultra-right ideology espoused by some members. Later in 2022, Musk was having regular conversations with high-level Russians, according to a person familiar with the interactions. At the time, there was pressure from the Kremlin on Musk's businesses and implicit threats against him, the person said. At the same time, Musk increasingly took to Twitter, for which he was completing the purchase, to say SpaceX was losing money by funding the operation of the terminals. In October 2022, he asked his tens of millions of followers on X to vote on a pathway to peace that mirrored some aspects of the Kremlin's offer to Ukraine at the time. Those conditions included continued Russian occupation of Crimea and Ukrainian neutrality outside of NATO. He also specified that Ukraine should continue allowing the supply of water to Crimea, an issue that had been an important concern of the Kremlin before the war. One current and one former intelligence source said that Musk and Putin have continued to have contact since then and into this year as Musk began stepping up his criticism of the U.S. military aid to Ukraine and became involved in Trump's election campaign. Utterly shocked. Shocked, I tell you. In the past year, Musk and Russia's interests have increasingly overlapped. Apart from Russia's use of X for disinformation and Musk's outspoken opposition to aid to Kyiv, Ukrainian officials said earlier this year that Russian forces occupying the country's eastern and southern swaths had started using Starlink to enable secure communications and extend the range of their drones. Russian troops also began using Starlink terminals brought in through third countries at a massive scale, undermining one of Ukraine's few battlefield advantages. Musk has said on X that to the best of his knowledge, no terminals had been sold directly or indirectly to Russia, and that the terminals wouldn't work inside Russia. Late last year, the Kremlin first made the request of Musk to not activate Starlink over Taiwan, said a former Russian intelligence officer briefed on the situation. The request was done as a favor to China, he said, whom Russia was increasingly relying on for trade and to get around sanctions. A representative of the Chinese embassy in Washington said they weren't aware of the specifics and couldn't comment. And it goes on and on. Literally, the guy that owns Twitter, the platform where you guys largely get your news, is happily doing the work of right-wing dictators and wannabe dictators. Beyond that, he's become so integral to multiple nations that this news was considered incredibly classified, and even top-level officials didn't know what was going on. The fact that the WSJ put this out means that there's going to be alarm bells ringing all over our government soon enough. A guy so ingrained in our society has literally been doing favors for right-wing dictators and pushing right-wing extremism on his platform.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.